Have you ever had a job where you had one boss who just somehow got the best out of you, and then maybe another one who made you want to watch the clock and do the absolute bare minimum? Well, it turns out that difference isn't magic. It's psychology. Today, we're going to dive into some fascinating research that uncovers exactly how a leader's style directly taps into our brains to shape our motivation.
I mean, this is really the core question, isn't it? We've all felt the difference, but what we're going to do now is unpack the science behind it. We're going to look at the specific psychological mechanics of how influence actually works and why one approach builds genuine commitment while the other just gets you reluctant compliance.
So at the very heart of this whole dynamic is one thing: power. And the research frames it perfectly as a double-edged sword. See, power itself isn't good or bad. It's just a tool that every leader has. But how they decide to use it, well, that can either build a team that's thriving and engaged, or it can crush morale completely.
Now, if you look it up in a textbook, power is defined as asymmetric control over valued resources. I know, that sounds super academic, right? But all it really means is that one person has more control over something the other person wants or needs. You know, that could be a paycheck, key information, or even just their approval. It's a natural part of almost any workplace.
Okay, so if power is the tool, how exactly do leaders use it? Well, researchers have pretty much sorted it into two big categories. You can think of them as the two very different faces of influence a leader can show their team. Let's break them down. All right, so on one side, you have what's called hard power. This is the kind of power that comes with the job title. It's your coercive power, which is basically the threat of punishment. It's reward power, like dangling a bonus. And it's legitimate power, which is the whole "because I'm the boss, that's why" thing. It's all about demanding compliance. And then, on the complete other side of the coin, you have soft power. This stuff is earned. It's not about your position, it's about who you are. It's about being an expert or being respected, and, this is key, it's about providing clear information. It doesn't demand, it invites.
Okay, so we've got the leader's toolkit, hard power and soft power. But that's only half the story, right? To really get what's going on, we have to flip the script and look at the employee's internal engine. What is it that actually drives us as people? To understand motivation, you first have to understand our most basic psychological needs.
There's this really incredible framework called self-determination theory, and it says that all of us, as human beings, are kind of like plants. We need 3 essential psychological nutrients, to really thrive. First, we need autonomy, that feeling of choice, that we're in control of our own actions. Second, we need competence, the feeling that we're actually good at what we do. And third, we need relatedness, that sense of connection and belonging. When these needs get met, we flourish. When they're starved, well, our motivation just withers on the vine.
And this is where it all clicks into place. Let's trace the positive pathway first, where a leader's actions directly feed those psychological needs. This is the secret sauce behind how great leaders create real, lasting motivation. So to really see this in action, let's zoom in on one specific and super important type of soft power: informational power. This is not just about dumping data on someone. It's about providing the why. It's a leader's ability to give a clear, logical reason for why a task is important or why a change needs to happen. Now check this out, because what happens next is like a beautiful psychological chain reaction. When a leader uses this informational power, when they give you the why, it directly feeds our deep-seated need for autonomy. Suddenly, we understand the purpose and we can choose to get on board. It's our decision. It also boosts our sense of competence, because with that context, we feel much more capable of doing the task well. And the result of all this, we reach this high-quality state of motivation called identified regulation, where we willfully engage because the task actually means something to us now. And that is the absolute essence of identified regulation. It's perfectly captured in this quote. It's that magic switch that flips in your head from "I have to do this" to "I choose to do this," because the work actually lines up with your own values. You're not doing it for a carrot or to avoid a stick. You're doing it because you believe in it. And that, my friends, is sustainable, high-octane motivation. So that's the sunny path, right? The ideal. But what about the other side of that double-edged sword? What happens when a leader leans on hard power? Well, as you can probably guess, the psychological journey is a much different story. It's more like a dead-end street. Let's look at the classic example of hard power: coercive power. This is influence that's built on fear. It's the whole "do this or else" approach to management. It relies entirely on the threat of negative consequences to get things done. And the chain reaction here is just as direct, but man, it leads somewhere you do not want to go. When a leader uses threats, it's like a direct assault on our fundamental need for autonomy. We immediately feel controlled, pressured, and, let's be honest, pretty resentful. The only motivation this creates is something called external regulation, where we're only doing the work to avoid getting in trouble. Our heart isn't in it. Our creativity is gone. We're just complying.
And look, this isn't just a nice theory. The data is crystal clear. Research from Peyton and his colleagues in 2019 just backs this up completely. They found a huge positive link between a leader using soft power and employees feeling that optimal high-quality motivation. And no surprise, they found an equally strong link between hard power and that damaging low-quality motivation. The numbers don't lie.
So what, right? Who cares if you're feeling optimally motivated versus externally regulated? Well, it turns out it matters a lot. These aren't just warm and fuzzy feelings. They have massive, tangible, real-world consequences for an organization's bottom line. So what do you actually get when leaders foster this optimal motivation? Well, you get all the things that every company says it wants. People have a higher intent to stay. They don't want to leave. They give you that increased discretionary effort, going the extra mile, not because they have to, but because they want to. They show more of what are called organizational citizenship behaviors, basically being a good teammate. And of course, their core drive to perform their actual job is way, way stronger.
So at the end of the day, when you put it all together, the conclusion is just unavoidable. Sure, hard power might get you compliance in the short term, but that compliance comes at a huge long-term cost. For sustainable engagement, for real performance, and for keeping your best people, soft power isn't just a nice-to-have, it's simply the superior strategy. Which really brings it all back to a single choice, doesn't it? Your influence, whether you're managing 100 people or just working with one colleague, is a tool. So knowing the profound psychological impact you have, the research leaves us with a really powerful question. How will you choose to use it?